This video is about the Gorgias, and it's our beginning video about that dialogue. This dialogue is a little different from the other two dialogues that we've read. It's like the Euthyphro, and it's mostly dialogue, unlike the Apology, which has extended monologues. But unlike the Euthyphro, it's longer and it extends over many more topics than the single question of the Euthyphro. So I expect that this was a challenge for you to read. Thank you for sticking with it. All philosophy is a challenge, and unless you try, you won't get any better at reading it. As always, get as much as you can out of it. Nobody sees or understands everything, and there's nothing wrong with that. I chose the Gorgias because I wanted to continue the discussion about the nature and value of philosophy that we began in the Apology, at least according to Plato. In this dialogue, Socrates discusses rhetoric or oratory with a famous orator named Gorgias. He was a sophist and practiced and taught rhetoric, practical skills at argument meant to persuade others. He was like a really good lawyer. He could argue for any side. Today, rhetoric has a bad name, and it had a bad name in ancient Athens as well. If you remember, Socrates was accused of being a sophist. He was accused of making the weaker argument the stronger, which is a veiled way of saying that you're a sophist, a rhetorician. But Socrates said that he was a philosophist, a lover of wisdom, and he was concerned to uncover what was actually true and actually good and actually beautiful. Sophists apparently weren't interested in doing that. They settled for what was best at the time and for even what people were willing to pay them. This makes the choice sound easy, I guess. Sophist 0, philosophers 1. Before we get deeper into the dialogue, let's return to our discussion about the intellectual and affective aspects of the philosopher. Both are always present, and both will affect the chances for success of any philosophical discussion. Obviously, differing intellectual abilities and experience in the interlocutors will cause problems. The weaker will be unable to follow the discussion, will likely yield to the experience of the other too easily, and unlikely to know how to proceed with facility. It's like a teacher and a student. Different kinds of character will also affect the discussion. Two people of disciplined characters, concerned with truth alone, would facilitate progress. But if one of them is more concerned to score points or to become easily offended or gets frustrated easily, the discussion has much more chance of going astray. Let me find my picture of Gorgias here. There he is. So consider Gorgias. Here is a professional talker, a professional arguer, who travels giving speeches that people come to listen to. That's the opening of the dialogue. We hear that he has just given a speech. His experience in speaking and arguing, and he has the confidence that experience has given him. He is a much better match for Socrates than Euthyphro, who is a little proud, bombastic, and self-concerned, and engaged in a tenuous activity of prosecuting his father. Gorgias, too, is not Miletus, who is motivated by jealousy and probably dislike of Socrates, which blinds him to the situation at hand. Gorgias has experienced the give and take of argument in the assembly and knows better to take things not too personally or to lose composure. He was rich, he was successful, he practiced in various cities, and he gave public exhibitions of the skill that we learn about in this dialogue. We also learn that he had a special feature of his displays, which was to ask questions from the audience and give impromptu replies. So we kind of expect a little more from the conversation between Gorgias and Socrates, and we get it. A kind of give and take, where Gorgias is willing to cede points and understands how argument works. Notice too Socrates' attitude to Gorgias. He is deferential at times and patient and apologetic about the process. I didn't notice any irony like we saw with Euthyphro. or we will see later in the discussions with Polus and Callicles. So you might have been surprised, I certainly was, where Socrates almost asked Gorgias if he wants to be refuted. This is at 457c. And if they should just end the conversation. Socrates says, Gorgias, you have experienced many discussions. The participants get irritated, each thinking the other is speaking out of spite. I am afraid to pursue my examination of you for fear that you should take me to be speaking with eagerness to win against you, rather than to have our subject become clear. Compare this to when the young Polus breaks in the middle of the dialogue to defend his teacher, and Socrates calls him most admirable Polus. It's not for nothing that we get ourselves companions and sons. It's so that when we ourselves have grown older and stumble, you younger men might be on hand to straighten our lives up again. This, I think, is clearly dripping with irony. When he talks to Callicles, he calls Callicles a stone on which they test gold. Again, I think that this might be the opposite of what he intends. So let's keep this point about skill and character in mind and their effects on a successful philosophical inquiry as we move through the Gorgias and later when we look at